Rabbi Berel Wein. Rabbi Wein is the renowned Rav, the former Rosh Yeshiva, historian, popular speaker, and so much more. Rabbi Wein, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ari.
So, Rabbi Wein, today we're talking about anti-Semitism, and we'll focus also on university campuses. But let's start in general about what's the root cause of anti-Semitism. Is it the same we've seen historically? Are things different today? Where do we start on this?
The Talmud says, Loma nikra shmo Sinai. Why was it called Sinai? It's a play on words. B'nei sheyorda sino l'olam. Anti-Semitism begins with our father Abraham. It continues till today. The basic root cause is because we dare to be different. We dare to have our own opinions, our own beliefs. We don't believe in the rule of the majority. We're a thorn in the side of every idea and power in the world. We have always been that. So people don't like that. So it took different forms. The anti-Semitism of the Romans was because the Jews exposed paganism as being nonsense. The whole Roman society was based upon paganism and upon immorality. The Jews basically, even though there always were immoral Jews, God forbid, but Judaism is against immorality. And people don't like to hear that. It disturbs them. It's not the channel that they want to turn on. Today, the state of Israel is at the forefront, but the Jewish people are there. A large section of the Jewish people say to the world, you're crazy. You're wrong. Your ideas are nefarious and false. Pie in the sky. We're not going along with it.
And we're not changing.
And we've never changed. We change socially, externally, etc. But basically, I'm of the opinion that if our teacher Moses came down from heaven to look at us today, we would recognize him and he would recognize us. Even though he wouldn't have a shtreimel and a zuppicha, and he wouldn't have a black hat, but he would recognize us. And we would recognize him. Which is something that you cannot say for Julius Caesar or Henry VIII or, unfortunately, even George Washington. I think that's a big difference. And that's why they hate us.
Is it hatred? Is it jealousy?
The end is hatred. How you got there? You can get there through jealousy. You can get through a bad experience that you had with a Jew. You can get there through false news. You can get there through fake history. There are a lot of roads to get there. The end is hatred.
Now, why does it get as extreme as Australia after the Hamas attack, and even before Israel retaliated, a real procession of Australians chanting, "Gas the Jews"?
Why do you think Australians are different than Germans or even than Americans? Well, I mean, it's the same thing.
And that extreme gassing the Jews.
Yeah, that's the solution. That's how to get rid of this thorn in your side.
Anti-Semitism, especially on campuses. Well, why are university campuses such virulent places when it comes to anti-Semitism?
Throughout the history of the world, it's been the intellectual class that has led anti-Semitism. In Germany, it was the philosophers and the musicians. It's always been the intellectual class because the Jews are the greatest threat to them. Because they are the most arrogant, and they're the ones that know better, and they're the ones that control society in their minds. You don't think the professors at Rutgers resent Lakewood? I think it's clear. And the intellectual class in our time has become not only agnostic, but basically atheistic. It represents all moral values that Judaism has rejected and continues to reject. And therefore, there is within the genes of the non-Jewish world a receptor that, if that receptor is fed, causes the reaction of anti-Semitism. And so that's what happens. They're angry at the Jews. I would say that most of the Australians who shouted, gas the Jews, never met a Jew in their life.
So is it just a thing to do?
It's not a thing to do. It's a way to get the rage and frustration of living in this imperfect world out of us.
And the Jew is the scapegoat.
The Jew is here, because the Jew represents the antidote to what's going on.
Right, so I guess that begs the question, is there anything that we can do? It seems that no matter what we do, it doesn't help. So either as individuals or as a community, is there something to do to counter the anti-Semitism?
Well, we have to try to counter it. We have to try to moderate it. We have to try and damp it down. But I don't think there's anything within us to eliminate it until the day of the final redemption.
Just try to put out the fires, but...
Yeah, right, to call them out on it, that's all. That's what we can do.
Right.
It's not going to be pretty. Never was, and never will be. I told somebody, I had to go to the shelter on Simchat Torah 8 times. I was in Ramat Beit Shemesh, my daughter's home. 8 times we went to the seal drill. So I told her, I said, I never felt so Jewish in my life. There's a lesson here.
Not an easy lesson.
None of the lessons are easy. And the Lord does not mark us on the curve. He marks on the absolute. Okay, we'll see what happens.
So we better excel.
It will always be good at the end.
Amen. Rabbi Wein, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Okay, call to us.